morning. It felt like with the morning welcome and good morning that you guys were still feeling the effects of the time change. No, we have been at my house, so I will try my best to set the stage like Katie said. So it's a privilege to be here. I had the opportunity to address the best practice colloquium on the west side last year, and I guess I didn't mess it up too much because they asked me to come over to the east side, and one of my colleagues from Camas is facilitating some of the sessions today, so we had a great drive over, and just really happy to be a part of this group. As Katie said, that I am from Camas. And if you don't know where Camas is, it's a small town. We think we're really a small town, but we're getting bigger all the time. Just east of Vancouver and across the river from Portland Airport. And I think the key to where we've found success so far and why we've been invited to these opportunities to collaborate, and they truly are amazing opportunities. I think that's one thing that TPEP has brought us, that we tried to collaborate before, but this has given us the kind of the third point to go to reach out to other districts and to have organizations like C-STEP put these kinds of events together, and we've grown so much from those opportunities. So a little about myself. I've kind of played a lot of different roles in education, and I've enjoyed all those roles, especially when I'm in them. And then there's a point where you're kind of like, okay, what's next? And that's just kind of been the path that I've taken. My dad was an elementary teacher. My mom is still a discipline clerk at a high school. I mean, man, she's got a job. And my wife is a guidance counselor, and I'm a father of 3. And so I feel like, man, I've seen public education from a lot of different lenses. And I've really come to appreciate all the roles and how those roles come together to serve our students. And when we think about when we started in Camas, we were like Tumwater, one of the second round of districts. And we really looked at it as an opportunity to look at our practice and to kind of leverage a place to say that you're not doing something wrong. We just have an opportunity to think about how we might do things differently and how we might grow together. And I remember a specific meeting that we had with administrators and teacher leaders, and we were really struggling, trying to figure out, kind of going back to some of the scoring thing that Sue talked about, and what if, and we were really stuck on the what if for really one teacher that was probably misplaced and probably shouldn't be a teacher, and it was going to work out at some point. And we stopped the meeting. And I had just had the opportunity to listen to Sir Ken Robinson, and he had talked about schools and how maybe the mission of schools should really just be about finding the greatness in every student and developing that greatness. And for us, we just stopped and we said, our goal isn't to serve the one teacher that's struggling. Our goal is to find the greatness in all of our teachers and to figure out how to facilitate their growth. And since that time, I feel like we've really tried to stay true to that. Every once in a while, there's some things that bubble up, but thinking about greatness has been something that, one, is kind of inspiring, and 2, it's a little bit overwhelming. And I think I would like to pause here for a second and ask you guys individually, and I'm going to ask you to share with somebody in 5 minutes, so just be prepared. It will be a safe kind of sharing thing, but I know I'm one of those people that when I'm in a session, I just don't want to have to talk to anybody, but I'll force you to talk to somebody. But I want you to think about, what does greatness mean to you? And maybe just jot down a line or two or a couple of words on a page or in your mind so that we can share those in a second. So when I think about greatness, unfortunately, my mind goes first to this. Kind of growing up and thinking about, I always thought I was going to be a professional baseball player until I realized I wasn't all that good at it. But these kinds of moments always stood out in my head of being great. And in today's world, those moments even get portrayed even more faster and faster and quicker and quicker. We always, it's amazing now, I can't really pay attention to a 1-minute video on Twitter, right? It's like 30 seconds, and then I'm like, okay, what's the next thing? And it's great because I see all these amazing moments, but I think it's kind of shaped our definition of greatness. And I look, some of these images you may have memories of those too if you're a sports fan. That one in the top right, did anybody know what that one's from? NFC Championship, right? That was last 2 years ago, I guess now. The NFC Championship game. And that's like a pretty good catch and stuff, but really the idea of why that's a great moment for Seahawks fan is because that game was a struggle. I mean, that was ugly. I mean, the Packers fans were loving life for most of that game, and Russell Wilson was like, who the heck is this guy? It is not our Russell Wilson. And then in a series of moments, things changed, and then we had this greatness that I think Seahawks fans are like, yeah, that was great, right? When you think about those moments and how we define greatness in our kind of culture now, it's just the moment. And it's fine when it's Jermaine Kearse catching a touchdown pass. People say, yeah, that's great. But that doesn't necessarily translate to the greatness that we see in students and teachers. And when we think about what is that pathway for them to develop that greatness. So anytime, if you've been in schools long enough and you know you're having a bad day, you know that you can go to certain places in the school or the school system and it just like totally renews you and you're like, wow, this is why I do this. Where's one place that you might go for that? Kindergarten, right? And so what I did is I went to kindergarten and I asked them, what do they think about greatness?
I'm great at playing soccer. I'm great at doing backflips. I'm great at basketball and soccer. I am great at school. I'm great at kindergarten. I'm great at kindergarten.
So, aren't they awesome? I love that girl that I am great at school. Like, there's no doubt in her mind. And so, as I was talking to kindergarten, there's some themes came out. And one of the things is that it's something that they like, right? Soccer, school, it was just like, obviously, if I'm great at it, I like it. It's something that they're pretty good at already. Like, they're kind of confident in it. They love learning about it. So just because they're good at soccer, it's not that they don't want to go out and practice it and learn and play it, right? And then they are really excited to get better about it. And so as we started to think about greatness and how we can create systems to think about that and the pathways for greatness, we're really wanting to embody the spirit of kindergarten greatness, right? And notice that they didn't, I put a camera right on them. They had no problem telling me what they were great at, right? So this is the push I'm going to give to you. I want you to think right now, based on your definition of greatness, what are you great at? So think about that. And then my challenge is, do you got something as I pause and what are you great at? The push here is I want you to share that with somebody who's next to you. Okay? Now, if you're like me, something might have just changed in you. Like, I would say, like, oh, maybe I don't want to share that part, because that might sound like, and granted, we're not talking to presidential nominees here, so I don't think they have a problem saying what they're great at, but I think we might. So just turn to a neighbor and just say, what are you great at? I love that you guys all have something to talk about. And I think if you didn't get a chance to share everything that you're great at some point today, just walk up to a random person and say, you know what, I'm great at this. And see what they do. I think it's a safe place for us here with this. And why I said I think it's a safe place, that's the same kinds of conditions that we're trying to create in systems where it's okay for people to say, this is what I'm kind of good at, because we're using that definition of what kindergartens define great, right? It's something that I love. It's something that I'm pretty good at, but it's something also that I'm really excited about learning. And we know that the trajectory of learning about that doesn't necessarily look linear, right? That there's going to be ups and downs with that learning. And if we can create the safe systems that wrap around those teachers, are more likely, or those principals, to take risks with it. If we go back to thinking about the SportsCenter kind of highlight reel of greatness, like that really translates well in our society, right? Like that catch of Griffey reaching over the fence. I mean, there's all these moments, and people look at that and they all say, yeah, that's pretty cool. Teaching and learning doesn't necessarily translate well to SportsCenter kind of highlights. You really need a lot of the moments to understand the story of what's happened and where a kid has come from and where they're at now and where they're going. And really, I think that's where public schools, we've really kind of, we don't have anybody else to blame but us. We have typically sat back and said, man, all this accountability stuff, they don't get it. It's not the whole story. Well, the problem is we've left this space around what we do, especially at the state and federal level, where people don't necessarily understand the work. They don't know what it means to take a kindergarten group and move them forward and get them ready to first grade. And because that space has been left there, other people who are interested in education and wanting good outcomes for kids fill the space. And the narrative has been told by other people, not by educators. And those people, I choose to believe, are really well-intentioned. Like, they want their resources to make the best for kids. And they have ideas around that. And so when things aren't going well, they tend to say, well, maybe we should put a new evaluation system in place to get rid of the bad teachers or to get rid of the bad principals. And so you can kind of see how this space has been filled with not our voice, but other people's voices. And it's really crucial for us to start filling that space with the story of what's happening. And the stories are hard to tell. And there's a lot of data that says, like, parents are really happy with their own schools, but then when they talk about state schools or our country schools, they think that something's failing. And it's not that we say that we don't want accountability or that we don't want to get better about these things. It's just the tools that are used for that sometimes aren't as helpful as we want them to be. I want to share one story of a kid in our district. And I want to share this story because there's truly greatness on the teacher side of this story. But if you look at just the kid and you look at the way we're defining accountability at the state and federal level, all for good intentions, he's a failure. He will always be a failure. He will never meet AYP. He will never pass the end of course assessment. And because he's a failure, as a teacher, his teacher may be viewed a failure, his school may be viewed a failure, his principal may be viewed a failure as well. And that's just really too bad because he's got an amazing story.
Where, the babies on the bus go. Where? Okay, it's your part now. Babies on the bus go. Where? They do, through the whole town. Open and shut, the doors on the bus go. Open and shut.
Nice.
Good work.
Nice job, Micah.
You let me have a turn. That was nice.
So you look at that, and I don't know, it's hard to necessarily see in the context of that is that he's using a head switch to play a pre-recorded part of the song, right? And so the teachers and his therapists are trying to cue him up and engage him so that he knows when it's ready for him to play his part. And when you think about accountability and the story around that, for his parents and his teachers, that is the utmost form of accountability. There is nothing that anybody else can create that holds those teachers to a standard of working so hard to find out the puzzle of Micah's learning. And so when we look at that and we start to think about that kindergarten definition of greatness, and we think about the systems that we're creating, and Sue, thank you for putting that up on a tee. You know, our greatness doesn't come down to just a score in a moment. Right? It's these series of moments that tell this story of what's happening with this student, what's happening with this teacher and how they grow. And those stories are built through our kind of collaboration. We look at our framework specialists and the common language that they've given us to talk about growth, and to have the conversation so we know where we're at now and where we would like to be. And then this huge thing down at the bottom around trust. And that has been the key, no matter all the places that I've worked in schools and the roles I've been able to play, it really comes down to two things, and it's about relationships and it's about learning. If everything that we do is focused on those two things, the story is amazing as it unfolds. So as we kind of go off into this day, I would really like to challenge you to think about this amazing time that we're public educators. This is my 21st year in public schools. I started that first year as a substitute teacher, and boy, you learn a lot about schools and teachers as a substitute teacher. And then when my first year of teaching, I just remember I just got the math books and I sat in my classroom and I just tried not to mess anything up, and nobody really talked to me unless there was they wanted me to be the scoreboard operator at the varsity basketball game, and I realized why, as a first-year teacher, that wasn't a job that you should really volunteer for. And now I look at the new teachers that we have in our district and the amazing educators that they get to work with and the kinds of conversations they're having and the kinds of information that they're getting about their students and the tools, and it's like, oh my gosh. Right? It's truly, we are so privileged to get to work with our students and use the resources that we have. At the same time, the challenge seems to get more and more great each year. And the kids come to us with such amazing stories of heartache and how are we going to help them be successful. And I really believe, and I think we're seeing, and you are evidence of being here today, that we have this power through systems like the evaluation system to develop greatness. And if that's our goal and our focus, then when we get to a place, and this is, oops, I went backwards. This is Micah, who was in preschool when that video was taken, and this was his first day of kindergarten. And so his story is continuing to be told in our district with amazing educators that are trying to unlock what his learning looks like. And again, it'll never show up, in the story that we've told for so many years. But as a collective whole, public education, if we can start telling those stories and the learning that we have, I think that we're going to be just fine. So thank you so much for your time this morning, and I hope that you have a wonderful day. And please reach out to Camas if there's anything that you would like to collaborate with us about. So, thank you.